Simple Truth Radio. Simple Truth Radio. Simple Truth Radio. Simple Truth Radio.
Welcome. I'm Infinite Reality, so are you, and so are all of us. And today I came across this picture on the internet. It might seem like it's a bit of a joke, but it's not really. It's the Queen walking through, a collection of gold here. Who knows of it, whether it's hers or not? No idea. But basically, the top of the picture says, "So where did you get all of this gold, Queen Elizabeth?" And the answer is down the bottom, of course. My family stole it from Africa. And that brings up a good question as to who stole it for her, because I've wanted to talk about this man for a while. His name is Cecil John Rhodes, and this is him right here. And I want to start this video out today with a collection of quotes from him, personally. And I'll start off with this one. "A society should have members in every part of the British Empire working with one object and one idea. We should have its members placed at our universities and our schools and should watch the English youth passing through their hands, just one perhaps in every 1,000, which would have the mind and feelings for such an object. He should be tried in every way. He should be tested whether he is endurant, possessed of eloquence, disregardful of the petty details of life, and if found to be such, then elected and bound by oath to serve for the rest of his life in his country." Now, this is the man we're talking about here. I've got a whole collection of these things, so bear with me. Now, here's another one. "Why should we not form a secret society, but with one object, the furtherance of the British Empire, and the bringing of the whole uncivilized world under British rule for the recovery of the United States, for the making the Anglo-Saxon race but one empire?" Wow, this guy is pretty racist, isn't he? But let's continue. "Africa is still lying ready for us, and it's our duty to take it. It's our duty to seize every opportunity of acquiring more territory, and we should keep this one idea steadily before our eyes, that more territory simply means more of the Anglo-Saxon race, more of the best, the most human, most honourable race the world possesses." Unbelievable. Characters like this have perpetrated through history. But I'll continue. "At the present day, I become a member of the Masonic Order. I see the wealth and power they possess, the influence they hold, and I think over their ceremonies, and I wonder that a large body of men can devote themselves to what at times appears the most ridiculous and absurd rites, without an object and without an end." But he joined them anyway, didn't he? Well, let's continue. "I contend that we are the finest race in the world, and that the more of the world we inhabit, the better. It is for the human race. What an alteration there would be if they Africans were brought under Anglo-Saxon influence." Well, absolutely racist statement right there. Absolutely racist statement. And this guy is exactly that. He's a racist through and through. But let's continue. "To and for the establishment, promotion, and development of a secret society, the true aim and object whereof shall be for the extension of British rule throughout the world, the perfecting of system of emigration from the United Kingdom, and of colonization by British subjects of all lands where the means of livelihood they are attainable by energy, labour, and enterprise, and especially the occupation by British settlers of the entire continent of Africa, the Holy Land, the valley of the Euphrates, the islands of Cyprus and Candia, the whole of South America, the islands of the Pacific, not heretofore possessed by Great Britain, the whole of the Malay archipelago, the seaboard of China and Japan, the ultimate recovery of the United States of America as an integral part of British Empire, the inauguration of a system of colonial representation in the Imperial Parliament, which may tend to weld together the disjointed members of the empire, and finally, the foundation of so great a power. Well, this guy is what you call an imperialist. You know, he's a racist, among other things, and he's a raper and pillager of lands of other people. And that's what he did for a living, and made very, very lot of money out of it. But let's continue. We must find new lands from which we can easily obtain raw materials and at the same time exploit the cheap slave labour that is available from the natives of the colonies. The colonies would also provide a dumping ground for the surplus goods produced in our factories. See, these are the way these people think. You know, they will do anything to steal people's livelihood and their wealth of their own lands. I find it disgusting myself. But don't take my word for it, because a man by the name of Matthew Sweet wrote an article in 2002 about Cecil Rhodes, and he called it Cecil Rhodes, a bad man in Africa. The evil that men do lives after them, rarely more miserably than in the case of Cecil Rhodes, who died 100 years ago this month, actually when he wrote it in 2002. He goes on to say, north of the Zambezi, they have long known about the suppression of free speech, about the bloody distribution of land along racial lines, about politicians happy to employ armed and sometimes uniformed mobs to kill their opponents. They are practices imported to this region along with the railways by the British. Unlike the African press, the Western media rarely invoked the name of Cecil John Rhodes, nearly a century after his death on 26th of March 1902. His name is more associated with Oxford scholarships than with murder. It's easier to focus on the region's more recent, less Anglo-white supremacists, Ian Smith, for instance, who, despite his Scottish background, seems cut from the same stuff as those Afrikaner politicians who nurtured and maintained apartheid farther south. But it was Rhodes who organised the racist land grabs to which Zimbabwe's current miseries can ultimately be traced. And yeah, this is going on to this day. The land grab in Zimbabwe by off white farmers, and they're getting murdered now. Probably a bit of payback for for the rape and pillage of Africa over the years, but don't condone it either way, really. It was Rhodes too who in 1887 told the House of Assembly in Cape Town that the native is to be treated as a child and denied the franchise. We must adopt a system of despotism in our relations with the barbarians of South Africa. Or in less oratorical moments, he put it even more bluntly, I prefer land to, and I'm not going to say that word, okay? So I find it abhorrent. But this is the culture that he brought up, and through his scholarship system that was mentioned a bit further up the page, he bred people that are like this and do these sorts of things. And funnily enough, our Prime Minister, Mr. Malcolm Turnbull, is an Oxford scholar, and so are a hell of a lot of other people that are in politics, finance, banking, you name it. They tend to find their way into these areas that destroy people's lives and have ultimate power. But let's continue. For much of the century since his death, Rhodes has been revered as a national hero. Yeah, isn't that disgusting? Today, however, he's closer to a national embarrassment, about whom the less said the better. And this is coming from South Africa. These people know their history. They lived through it. Okay. Yet there are plenty of memorials to him to be found in Bishop Shortford in his Herefordshire birthplace. St Michael's Church displays a plaque. The town has a Rhodes Art Centre, a Rhodes Junior Theatre Group, and a small Rhodes Museum, currently closed, which houses a collection of African art objects. In Oxford, his statue adorns Oriel College. Well, there was a big outroar about that last year, because I think a lot of people are starting to wake up about who this guy is. While Rhodes House, in which the Rhodes Trust is based, the Rhodes Trust, one of the richest trusts in the world, is packed with memorabilia. Even Kensington Gardens boasts a statue of a naked man on horseback based on the central feature of his memorial in Cape Town. But his presence is more strongly felt and resented in the territories that once bore his name. Delegates of the Pan-Africanist Congress in January argued that the problems which were being blamed on President Robert Mugabe at the time were created by British colonialism. Yeah, absolutely. This is all the problems that we're having in Africa now are a hangover of the colonialism from British rule. And to be honest, the only despot back in those days was Cecil Rhodes, whose agent Cecil Rhodes was used armed force to acquire land for settlers. Here's the reason why. During the campaign for the presidential election in Zimbabwe, Mugabe's ZANU-PF described its enemies, white or black, as colonialists. Why? When Zimbabwe gained full independence in 1980, Rhodes' name was wiped from the world's maps. Yeah, it used to be called Rhodesia at one point. The persecution case is strong. Rhodes connived his way to wealth in a lawless frontier culture, then used that fortune to fund a private invasion of East Africa. He bought newspapers in order to shape and control public opinion. Geez, I wonder who else does that in this world. We ever heard of Rupert Murdoch, for instance? Just about talking about buying Sky News at the moment, and funnily enough, the UK public are having a bit of a problem with that. Well done for the UK public. He brokered secret deals, issued bribes, and used gangs of mercenaries to butcher his opponents, seizing close to 1 million square miles of territory from its inhabitants. Although he did this in the name of the British Empire, he was regarded with some suspicion in his home country, and when it suited him to work against the British imperial interest by slipping £10,000 to Parnell's Irish nationalists, for example, he did so without scruple. Yeah, because these people have no morals. They do what's best for themselves, best for business. Rhodes was born in the summer of 1853, the fifth son of the parsons, who prided himself on never having preached a sermon longer than 10 minutes. A sickly, asthmatic teenager, he was sent to the improving climate of his brother's cotton plantation in Natal. Well, yeah, I wonder where he learned how to subjugate people. The pair soon became involved in the rush to exploit South Africa's diamond and gold deposits, and comes back to my original point about the picture that I spoke about there. Where did the Queen get her gold? Well, you better ask Cecil Rhodes. Unlike many prospectors and speculators who wandered dazed and luckless around the continent, their claim proved fruitful. Yeah, I bet, because they knew what to look for. When Rhodes began his studies at Oriel College, he returned to South Africa each vacation to attend his mining interest, which by the mid-30s had made him, in today's terms, a billionaire. By 1891, he had amalgamated the De Beers mines under his control, giving him dominion over 90% of the world's diamond output. Yeah, gold and diamonds, eh? Very lucrative. He had also secured two other important positions: Prime Minister of the British Cape Colony and president of the British South Africa Company. Yeah, well, you ever heard of the Dutch East India Company? And, you know, this is another one, British South Africa Company. All amalgamations under the crown. An organisation that was formed in the manner of the old East India Companies, of course, yet to pursue expansionist adventures for which sponsoring governments did not have the stomach or the cash. The results of his endeavours produced new British annexations, Nyasaland, now Malawi, Northern Rhodesia, now Zambia, and Southern Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. Yeah, of course. Right, there's a picture of him, all conquering. Look at him. Look what he's standing on. Africa. Like it's his. Oh, what a bastard. Rhodes imprinted his personality on the region with monarchical energy. Dams, railway engines, towns, and anti-dandruff tonics were all named after him. But his expansionist zeal was not always matched at home in Britain. Our burden is too great, Gladstone once grumbled. We have too much, Mr. Rhodes, to do. Apart from increasing our obligations in every part of the world, what advantage do you see the English race in the acquisition of new territory? Rhodes replied, Great Britain is a very small island. Great Britain's position depends on a trade, and if we do not open up the dependencies of the world, which are at present devoted to barbarism, we shall shut out the world's trade. It must be brought home to you that your trade is the world, and your life is the world, not England. That is why you must deal with these questions of expansion and retention of the world. See, he wasn't happy with his little lot. He wanted the lot. And people like that are very, very dangerous. And he became dangerous. He became a dangerous man. His ideologies are still pushed to this day through things like his Rhodes Scholarship. At around the same time, Henry John Hines was outstanding, outlining a comparable manifesto. Our field, he pronounced, is the world. By 1900, his 57 varieties were available in every continent. Global capitalism and imperial expansion developed in collaboration, shared aims, aspirations, patterns of influence. Today, most of the world's political empires have been dissolved and discredited, but the routes along which capital moves remain the same. After Rhodes came Nestle, Coca-Cola, BP, McDonald's, and Microsoft. Exactly. Instead of having a colony, now we've got corporations. And they work the same way. They work the same way, just without the overt oppression. Now we call them employees. Okay, in 1896, Rhodes' name was linked with the Jamison Raid, disastrous and illegal attempt to annex Transvaal territory held by the Boers. Yeah, you ever heard of the Boer War? Yeah, there you go. He's the man behind it. And a principal cause of the South African War of 1899 to 1902. His reputation in Britain accrued a lasting tarnish. A defense of his character, published in 1897 and co-authored by the pseudo-anonymous imperialist, offers an insight into the charges against him: bribery and corruption, neglect of duty, harshness to the natives, and the allegation that Mr. Rhodes is utterly unscrupulous. His lifelong companion, Dr. Leander Starr Jameson, a future premier of the Cape Colony and the leader of the ill-fated raid, added a postscript insisting that some of Rhodes' best blacks were friends. I find that hard to believe. His favourite Sunday pastime was to go into the De Beers native compound, where he had built them a fine swimming bath, and throw in shillings for the natives to die for. Oh, jeez, what a generous man, eh? Never mind the millions and millions of gold and diamonds you put out. Throw in a few shillings, that'll be enough. He knew enough of their languages to talk to them freely, and they looked up to him, indeed fairly worshipped the great white man. Yeah, well, subjugation does funny things to people, doesn't it? Did anyone buy this stuff? Yeah, probably not. I don't think people were dumber back then. I think they were probably far smarter and saw through a lot of this stuff. But anyway, after Rhodes' fatal heart attack on 26th of March 1902, the death notices were ambivalent. News editors across the world cleared their pages for obituaries and reports of public grief in South Africa, but few wholehearted endorsements of his career emanated from London. He has done more than any single contemporary to place before the imagination of his countrymen a clear conception of the imperial destinies of our race, conceded the Times. But we wish we could forget the other matters associated with his name. Yeah, well, they conveniently did. For a long time. Empire builders such as Rhodes, the paper said, attracted as much. I've never even seen that word. What is it? Opprobrium as praise. On the other hand, they are enthusiastically admired. On the others, they are stones of stumbling. They provoke a degree of repugnance, sometimes of hatred, in exact proportion to the size of their achievements. Jameson, an imperialist, it seems, had not succeeded in rehabilitating their mentor. But the story of Rhodes' posthumous reputation is just as complex and contentious as that of his life and career, and curiously, his sexuality was one of the main battlegrounds. Really, I don't think I want to get into that. I don't care what his sexual preference was, really. Yeah, let's see if we can move on a little bit. As the 20th century moved on, Rhodes' memory became increasingly attractive to extreme and eventually moderate right-wing opinion. Oswald Spengler's The Decline of the West in 1918 hailed him as the first precursor of a Western type of Caesar. In our Germanic world, the spirits of Alaric and Theodoric will come again. There is the first hint of them in Cecil Rhodes. Well, they just switched type. They decided to incorporate everything and everyone, and that was the new form of colonialism, covert instead of overt. It's easy to see why Spengler and later Hitler were fans. Asked by Jameson how long he would endure in memory, Rhodes replied, "I give myself 4,000 years." Jesus, he's magnanimous, isn't he? To the journalist W.T. Stead, he said, "I would annex the planets if I could. I often think of that." When in 1877 he first made his will, he urged his executors to use his fortune to establish a secret society that would aim to redden every area of the planet. He envisaged a world in which British settlers would occupy Africa, the Middle East, South America, the Pacific and Malay Islands, China and Japan, before restoring America to colonial rule and founding an imperial world government. He was deeply impressed, Jameson recalled, with a belief in the ultimate destiny of the Anglo-Saxon race. Yeah, I pointed that out in his quotes at the start of this video. He dwelt repeatedly on the fact that their great want was new territory fit for the overflow population to settle in permanently, which never happened, luckily, and thus provide markets for the wares of the old country, the worship of the world. It was a dream of mercantile Lebensraum for the English, an empire of entrepreneurs occupying African territories in order to fill them with Sheffield cutlery, Tate and Lyle, golden syrup, and Uncle Joe's mint balls. Yeah, consumerism, the start of consumerism. Let's sell stuff to people. Before that, there wasn't terribly much of that. But it was Rhodes' alma mater that did most to brighten his prestige. In 1899, Oxford University, an institution with a long and continuing history of accepting money from morally dubious millionaires, agreed to administer a more cuddly and less clandestine version of the imperial carbonari of the 1877 will. The Rhodes Scholars. In 1983, the first names were selected. A group of men fitted for manly outdoor sports who would display qualities of manhood, truth, courage, devotion to duty, sympathy for the protection of the weak, kindliness, unselfishness, and fellowship. Well, that's a bit different than what his quotes say, isn't it? Very different. And I have a hard time believing that that's what they strove for. I think it was more to the point they wanted empire builders in every corner of the world. But you know, let's move on. Men such as Bill Clinton, the CIA director, Stansfield Turner, the first Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Sir Arnold Smith, and the NATO Supreme Commander, Bernard Rogers. And as I said before, let's tack our Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, onto that. By 1936, M.L. Andrews was praising Rhodes' vision of world peace to be brought about by the domination of the English-speaking nations. In the same year, the Gaumont British Film Company produced the horrographic movie Rhodes of Africa. 2 years later, the Little Rhodes Museum was founded in Bishop's Stortford. Geez, funny names over there. When it reopens next year, children will, for a $5, be able to sign up as one of Rhodes' Little Rhinos. Great. A 1956 children's book, Peter Gibbs, The True Book about Cecil Rhodes, one of a series that also profiled Marie Curie, Captain Scott, and Joan of Arc, is the best example of how in the mid-20th century Rhodes was reclaimed as a national hero, more unalloyed in its enthusiasm for Rhodes than any comparable 19th century text. It makes for queasy reading, I bet it does, especially when you understand about the guy. Especially perhaps if you were voting in Zimbabwe last weekend, Southern Rhodesia, it reports is now tamed and civilized and cultured. Well, that wasn't true because it just kept going over there. And many thousands of white people have settled there. You've got to take into account too, this was written in 2002, and made it their home. Today there are beautiful modern towns, homes, gardens, parks, towering blocks of offices and flats, factories, railways and airports. It's a new and thriving country of the British Commonwealth, but where recently only savages and wild animals dwelt. And it started from the dreams of one young Englishman, Cecil Rhodes. Yeah, isn't that sycophantic? Absolutely sycophantic. You know, we tend to gloss over history and not actually look into the dirty parts of it after a while. And that's a mistake because, you know, if you don't understand the real history, you're condemned to repeat it. You really are. Alright, I'm not going to go into the diamonds aspect of it because it's the same as the gold. You know, basically, we know what happened there. But that's the story of Cecil Rhodes and how it sort of got whitewashed. Okay? This man was a disgusting human being. Make no mistake about it. And when you understand that, and you understand where his gold went, and his diamonds, you know, you can't look at it any other way but a rape of a nation, or rape of a continent. Let's not muck around. Rape of a continent, and it's all its wealth. And the poor people living in Africa today, I feel so bad and sorry for them. You know, they never asked for any of this and never deserved any of it. But because one man comes in on the behest of the Queen, really, let's not mince words about it, or the King at the time, whoever's in charge of the crown. Yeah, disgusting, my book. So I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for listening. If you like, subscribe to this. If not, no worries. And I'll see you next time.